Hello, welcome back to the Cartoonist Studio. Well, it's not a Cartoonist Studio, it's a pool room. It's not even my pool room, it's my daughter and son-in-law's pool room. But going to make a bit of a difference from the studio, a bit of a change. So what am I doing this week? Well, I'm doing Asterix the Gaul. Asterix the Gaul was one of the most influential cartoons in my life. Peanuts gave me a love of cartoons. Asterix the Gaul gave me a love of movement. So that's today's cartoon. So, who was Asterix the Gaul? Well, he was a little Gaulish hero. It was set in the time of Julius Caesar, and the little village that was surrounded by Roman camps, was on the Armorican coast, which is modern day Brittany. And they were given superhuman strength, which was brewed for them by their druid, Getafix. Now, all the names, the Gaulish characters, ended in IX. So you had Asterix, Obelix, Dogmatix. There was there was a village blacksmith, he was called Fully Automatics. There was Unhygienics, the fishmonger. The chief was called Vital Statistics, although in France I think he was called Tonabrix. And there was so many more of them. There was the terrible, terrible bard. No one could stand his singing. He was called Cacophonics. Great inventions, wonderful names. Friend of mine and myself, when we were kids, we even went to invent two of our own, which had never been used. And one was like, it was a guy that he was a model maker. We called him Airfix. And there was the farmer, the wheat farmer, and I called him Weetabix. So these were the great characters. The Roman names ended in EUS or OUS. And one of my favourite ones was the governor of Londinium, and he was called Encyclopedius Britannicus. Great names. Both created by true geniuses, René Goscinny, who wrote the stories, and Albert Uderzo, who perfectly executed the art. So, how popular was Asterix? So far, they have sold over 400 million copies worldwide, and they're still going strong. Putting that into some kind of a context, when I was reading Peanuts back in the 1980s, they used to advertise it as good grief, there's more than 200 million copies sold worldwide. And given that even a little more context, you could say that what they would do is they would reprint the strips, and then they get 4 books together and they put those 4 books into a bigger book and sell that. And then they put the Sunday comics into a special a special book of its own. And then you get treasuries and retrospectives and all sorts of things. And all these things counted to the sales. With Asterix the Gaul, it was the sale of the book. There is no other mishmash. They don't sort of say, oh, we'll take all the best of the best page 5s or anything like that. It just was what you got. So that's a hell of an achievement. And we'll give it even more context in a more modern environment. Calvin and Hobbes, one of the modern classics, if you can have such a thing. Whenever they sold or did the book collections of his cartoon strips, they would be advertising it and saying, it sold between 2 to 3 million copies. And that's fantastic, absolutely fantastic sales. But then when you consider when they announced a release of the latest, or rather there was going to be a release date for the latest Asterix the Gaul book or album, or bande dessinée as they call it out there, when they released that date, you would get, in Paris alone, you would get over 1 million pre-orders. That's how big that book is. That character, or those characters, are monsters. So, that's what I'm going to be drawing today. I'm going to be drawing Asterix, a homage to Albert Uderzo, the hugely talented artist who co-created Asterix the Gaul, with the utterly brilliant and inspiring René Goscinny. Apologies to my French viewers if I get the pronunciations incorrect. Albert Uderzo gave me my love of action. The way he could produce movement in a cartoon, I've never seen anyone do anything anywhere near like it. Even the great Waterson, who put lots of action and movement into his cartoons, still couldn't get quite the same. Albert Uderzo was a one-off. So, should we go and see how I can mess up a perfectly good Gaulish hero? Let's see that. But before I do it, let's pot the rest of the ball, shall we? Hello and welcome back to the Diary of the Cartoonist. I actually had another video lined up and it was going to be for my Castle comics. And all the way through it I was thinking, have I done one of these? Have I done one? No, I haven't. And something in the back of my mind kept on saying, you have, you fool. I'm used to being called a fool, so I tend to ignore it. But I thought, I thought maybe I'd put it out as a YouTube short things. So I checked them and sure enough I had, and I thought, well, that doesn't matter. It's just a YouTube short, isn't it? And then when I finished it and I put all the voiceovers and all the music and all the sort of gubbings and stuff that went to it, I just went onto my YouTube page and there it was, 2 videos back. Dixon Goes Medieval. I thought, oh my God. So I will be doing more of them because it is an ongoing project and something I'd like to keep you updated upon. But then that made me think, well, what can I do? And I remembered that if it wasn't for the character I'm drawing now, Asterix the Gaul, then I seriously would not have been drawing the kind of cartoons I do. I was so influenced by him that my style is most definitely European. And the Castle comics is set a couple hundred years further on from Asterix the Gaul, but it's still that same feel to it. So I guess it kind of inspired me. And then I realised that Asterix the Gaul is 65 years old this year. So I thought, well, I can't let that landmark go, not seeing as how much of an inspiration Asterix was to me, or Uderzo was to me. So that's it. That's what I'm doing. Now, I normally draw a comic strip. And Asterix the Gaul is a kind of a small graphic novel. They call them in French the bande dessinée. And they're usually about 43 to 45 pages long. Drawn or printed around about A4, so slightly different size to what you get in America. Completely different size to what you get with manga. And they've run this format for many, many years out in Europe. And they have hundreds and hundreds of titles. The comic artist is really treated properly in Europe. So because they do it in a comics page, I couldn't really justify the 2 hours or so it would take me to pencil a page and then however long it would take me to ink. Cartoon strips normally 1, 2, 3 panels, it's over and done with. It's a bit quicker, even though they seem to take a fair while. So for this video, I just decided to draw its main character, Asterix. And what I've also done is I've taken my version of an illustration by Conrad Didier for the latest Asterix album, or graphic novel. They call them albums, bande dessinée, all that sort of stuff. And I've noticed that when he draws Asterix, although he does an absolutely wonderful job, the first book he did, I think he sort of struggled to get into the flow of things, and that's completely understandable. To stand in the boots of an absolute genius, that's going to be nerve-wracking. But what he then did was all right, let's go back a little bit. Asterix, like any other character, has developed over a period of time. My artwork has changed. Every artist's artwork changes. And I would say the heyday, the perfect Asterix style would have been when he was doing stuff like Asterix in Switzerland, or Asterix on the Olympic Games, or Asterix on the Laurel Wreath, or Asterix in Corsica. These books to me were the quintessential Asterix style. So you can imagine how absolutely delighted I was when I realised that was the era, the very same era that Conrad Didier had decided that was the style he was going to emulate. So the books now have come in leaps and bounds. But of course, as I mentioned in the introduction, Uderzo was just a master of movement and action. And Conrad, great artist as he is, and a great emulator of all of the characters in Asterix the Gaul, and he definitely has the feel that I don't think anyone else could have got. He's brilliant at it. He doesn't have the action. And how could he? Uderzo was a one-off. Even if the great Bill Watterson, in my opinion, could not come anywhere near Uderzo, then no one else is really going to stand much of a chance. So what I did was I've taken one of the illustrations, and you'll notice, it'll be up on the screen somewhere here, you'll notice that in Conrad's picture, he's got Asterix turning to talk to Obelix. And I immediately realised that was a hindrance to the action, because if he's looking back, he couldn't be really swinging a punch. So Conrad drew him at a kind of a lukewarm pose, fighting pose. And half of the beauty of the original Asterix stories was these incredible fighting scenes he had, the things he'd do to the characters, the stuff that was going on. It was just, it seemed like there were a cast of thousands in every picture. My father always used to say that every panel was a masterpiece. And he was right. So Conrad couldn't quite get the action that I thought he could have got into it. So what I did was I had Asterix's face facing forward with his eyes looking back, and that's why it looks a bit odd. Just so as I can get the action in there that I felt Uderzo may have put in if he was still around. So that's the reason why my picture's slightly different to his. I'm not trying to say mine's better than his, nothing like that at all. Conrad's brilliance. It's just that I'm drawing it in my style. I'm drawing it the way I want to do it, and action is one of my things. I also noticed another thing that is different to the modern Asterix books as opposed to the ones drawn by Uderzo, was that Uderzo would often put in sound effects, not to the level of, say, Don Martin, but he put in sound effects, and they're not really in the modern books. I don't know why that is. I'm not sure, but so I put sound effects into my cartoon. I'll put it in a few minutes, or you'll see me draw it in a few seconds. And of course, another thing that all artists who have to take over from someone who'd previously drawn the cartoon strip, the originator, shall we say, is the books or the comic strips or whatever it is that they're taking over are now controlled by a consortium of people who think they know better. So the poor artist, I can only imagine what Conrad Didier is doing. They'll say to him, "You'll have to send us the pencils," and he'll draw the pencils, and they'll send it in. They'll say, "Oh, can we have the left index finger slightly up rather than slightly down, and can we have his nose about half the size bigger?" And it must be an absolute nightmare. I mean, I would love to be able to have the opportunity to draw Asterix the Gaul for a living. But I know that the nightmare that would come with it would just be horrendous. I remember my agent, this is a story from my past again, my agent asked me once if I wanted to draw Rupert the Bear, a character that was very popular in the UK and was in the Daily Express, I think. So I said, yeah, great, fantastic, because I knew it carried a good income. And he then told me of what the artists have to go through. He said that Rupert Bear was, most of his outfit was like a kind of a tartan effect, a tartan scarf, and I think tartan trousers I think he had. And the artist had drawn the characters faithfully to the way that it should have been done, but they sent it back because they said there's only one line in the tartan when he has two there, and that one, there should be more than one, and there should be more than three, and he couldn't believe it. And every single cartoon he did, they send back with this petty, and there's only one word for it, it's petty, corrections. Whereas rather than, like when I worked for the Beano and the Dandy, or the Dandy, and they asked me to take over an iconic character like Beryl or Peril, I had these things in my mind, but I needed the work at the time. And the editor, God bless him, the editor, Maurice Heggie, he said, "We want you to draw Beryl, we want you to make her recognisable as Beryl, but we want it in your style." And that was fantastic. I had so much freedom. So initially I copied the previous artist, and he said, morph it over a series of weeks to turn it into your style. And that's what I did. Over about 6 weeks, I gradually changed it into the way I wanted to draw Beryl, and I just went with it from there. And then Beryl became mine. It's quite strange that when another artist took over Beryl after me, very, very briefly, he didn't last very long in the role, he just changed it completely, straight away, utterly, totally. And no one said a word, and I thought, that was odd. Anyway, there's a few little stories. Here's my homage to Asterix the Gaul, one of the greatest cartoons ever produced, and by possibly the greatest cartoonist the world has ever known. So yeah, I'll just switch off now. I'll obviously thank you very much for your time. It's very much appreciated. I do apologise, by the way, for not producing one a fortnight ago. Things got out of control. You know how it goes. I'll probably explain it a little bit better in the next video. But yeah, enjoy this one. Things should be back to normal now, or abnormal, whichever way you want to look at it. And please do keep sharing these, because that's how people get to find out about us. The channel isn't growing as fast as I want it to. I want it to go a lot faster, so keep on pushing it out there for me, and I'm much appreciated. I appreciate everything that you do for me, and I love all the comments, and please do comment as much as you like down below in the comments below. It's always great to hear from you. Right, okay then. I shall see you in a fortnight. In the meantime, have a great 2 weeks, and as always, thank you, and bye-bye for now.